All right, so here's our agenda for the next few minutes. We'll provide some background and context about the purpose and development of the form. I'll share more about its content and structure. We'll talk about implementation in CAP, and then we'll review some available resources and supports. Please feel free to ask questions through the Q&A feature in the webinar. We'll try to answer them as we go, and there will also be some dedicated Q&A time later on. So I'll turn it over to Siobhan. Kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Many of you on the call today are deeply familiar with this work, but if you're not, I'll briefly share a little bit of background and context. The Early Literacy Observation Form is one component of our work to ensure that by school year 2024-25, aspiring teachers are being prepared in early literacy instructional practices that are evidence-based and culturally and linguistically sustaining, as outlined in the Mass Literacy Guide, through coursework and field-based placements. We know that in Massachusetts and nationwide, many children do not receive the instruction and support they need to develop a strong foundation for literacy in grades preschool through third grade. Mass literacy is a statewide effort to empower educators with the evidence-based practices for literacy that all students need. Evidence-based instruction provided within schools and classrooms that are culturally and linguistically sustaining will put our youngest students on a path toward literacy for life. Educator preparation plays an important role in reaching this vision. The Early Literacy Observation and Feedback Tool is designed to ensure that teacher candidates not only have opportunities to demonstrate their knowledge and skills in evidence-based early literacy instruction during field-based placements, but also that all candidates receive high-quality feedback to support them in being fully ready as an early literacy teacher. Additionally, the observation tool is meant to support sponsoring organizations' data-driven continuous improvement by providing important insights into trends into candidate practice and areas for continued or increased investment in program supports. The Early Literacy Form is the product of multiple years of input, piloting, and refinement. First, in 2020 and 2021, some of you joined us in the Early Literacy Ed Prep Network, where we first drafted look-fors and began to build out the form. The following year, a group of you piloted the tool and gave us additional feedback that helped further development of the form. Last year, while we released the draft program approval criteria and kicked off formative feedback reviews, the observation form was available as a resource to begin incorporating into your programs. This coming year, in 2023-24, we will have a partial statewide implementation, which we'll talk about in a moment. And in 24-25, the form will be fully implemented statewide.
Thanks, Siobhan, for that context. So I'll walk through the components of the form itself. Effective core literacy instruction includes the teaching of foundational skills, engaging with complex text and writing, with oral language developed throughout. Evidence-based instruction provided within schools and classrooms that are culturally responsive and sustaining is necessary for all of our students to thrive. So the Early Literacy Observation Form includes all of these components with direct links to resources and guidance from Mass Literacy. We'll drop the link in the chat for the form so you can have it handy as we go through. So as you'll see, the tool includes a set of look-fors that identify observable, evidence-based teacher and student actions during each component of the core literacy block. Culturally and linguistically sustaining practices are integrated throughout these look-fors as really critical to our definition of effective practice. There are two versions of the look-fors included in the observation form. One is for candidates that are placed in PK to 3 classrooms, and one is for candidates completing their practicum in grades 4 to 6. The look-fors are very similar, but adapted to meet the needs of each of those grade spans. These look-fors provide a supervisor with a guide for what they should expect to see during the observation. They help the observer focus in on important evidence-based practices for an early literacy teacher. So we recommend that supervisors read through these look-fors before the observation, and then during the observation, capture notes based on what they see in here. And there's a note space on the form that can be used for that purpose. Each look-for is aligned with one or more CAP elements. So the focus elements are subject matter knowledge, well-structured units and lessons, and high expectations. The final component of the tool after the look-fors is the observation form template itself. This part should be familiar to supervisors because it was designed to mirror the general observation form in CAP. And so you can see the general observation information up top, and then in the middle is a place to synthesize and record evidence for each focus element. This is where the supervisor should draw from what they saw and heard relative to those look-fors. As I mentioned before, each look-for is tagged to an element. So that's meant to help with sorting and synthesizing the evidence that's shared back with the candidate through this part of the form. And as we recommend with the general CAP observation form, the intention is not to include every moment of evidence from the observation, but really to synthesize and summarize the most salient information for that candidate. After the evidence section is where the supervisor enters feedback. So again, these parallel the general observation form with the reinforcement and refinement areas. But we've also included some prompts that are more specific to early literacy to help ensure that that feedback is really targeted towards this content area. And then finally, there's an optional space at the bottom for the educator to share their reflection on the observation and feedback if they choose. So I'll shift now to implementation in CAP. In the 23-24 school year, we will begin partial implementation of the form, with the goal really being identifying the systems and supports necessary for full implementation in 24-25. So for this partial implementation phase, all SOs are expected to use the form during CAP with at least 10 candidates in each of the relevant programs. This is really intended to provide flexibility for the supplemental work, like strengthening content knowledge and skills of supervisors before the full implementation year. And so while the form is being implemented with some candidates and supervisors, SOs can be working to ensure that all candidates and supervisors will be prepared to implement in 24-25. There are a couple logistical considerations for implementing in CAP that I just want to highlight for you here. So first, the form is designed to be used during announced observation 2 because the candidate will need to have that responsibility for the full core literacy block. So this means that it's necessary to switch the order of focus elements, as you can see in this chart. The dark blue row up top is the traditional sequence of observed elements based on the CAP guidelines. And the light blue row on the bottom is the alternative sequence for candidates participating in this early literacy observation. So if your program uses paper forms for CAP, the early literacy observation form will replace the general observation form. If you're using the online platform, you can continue to use the system with some modifications, which I'll share more about on the next slide. So, like I said, while you can continue to use the online platform for this observation, it's important to note that the early literacy observation form is not yet directly integrated into the system. So this means that supervisors will continue to see the general observation forms while they were using the online platform, but the content of the early literacy observation look-fors will not be there. So they'll need to refer back to the protocol itself in order to guide observations and feedback. Also, because those focus elements for the announced observations will be different, the required fields in the system will not align with the focus elements. So supervisors will need to enter text into all of the required fields, even if they aren't required for that observation, in order for the online platform to mark that form as complete per the requirements of the platform. So this means that the full protocol should be shared with program supervisors separately from the online platform to help ensure that they're able to integrate those look-fors into the evidence and feedback. We'll communicate that on the platform itself as clearly as we can, but it will be best if SOs can also support that communication to help ensure that this form is truly being implemented. And so I know you might have some questions at this point, so feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we'll work on addressing them as we go. So before we turn to the Q&A, there are a few resources and supports for implementing this form that we wanted to highlight with you today. First is the Math Literacy Online Overview course. So to support all educators in getting to know the wealth of information and resources within the Math Literacy Guide, DESE is providing an asynchronous online course available at no cost to any educator working in a Massachusetts district or education organization. This course includes 7 modules and is an opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of the information and resources available in the Math Literacy Guide. We'll share the link to register. As a complement to that online course, we are offering a community of practice for supervisors who would like to build their understanding of evidence-based early literacy practice and strengthen their skills in observing and providing feedback to candidates. The community of practice will meet 4 times throughout the year, and in between sessions, participants will complete modules of that Math Literacy Online Overview course. We'll then come together to discuss their learnings and how it applies to their role as a supervisor. The intended participants for this opportunity are program supervisors, so please consider forwarding the registration link to those in your organization who this may apply to. And we'll share the link that includes the full schedule as well as more information about the participation. Another resource available to share with program supervisors is this 2-page quick reference guide, which includes background and context about the early literacy observation form, as well as some specific guidance on implementing during CAP, including those considerations about using the online platform that I just shared. So we'll drop that link into the QRG that hopefully can be an easy resource you can share with program supervisors. At this point, we can pause and see if there's any questions. Siobhan, is there anything in the Q&A or chat?
Yes, there is. Amy Stratman asked that is it possible to just upload the form for the 3rd announced observation?
Yes, you can upload the observation as a 3rd announced observation. Yes, yep. You can always upload additional forms or artifacts as additional evidence on the online platform, but I was thinking for the 2nd announced observation, you'll have to complete the form. But if it's a 3rd observation, it can just be an extra. Yep. Any other questions?
That's it for now, but people can feel free to continue popping into the Q&A.
No, you do not need to register your 10 pilot candidates. Nope.
Oh, lots more now, Shannon.
Okay, I see them coming in. Put it on. Yes, so Hope's question, we use the template on CAP, but share the new one with practitioners and student teachers. So if you're talking about the online platform, you'll fill out the form, the observation form as it is in the online platform, but use the early literacy observation protocol as a guide to fill out that form. And you can share that with student teachers to help support them, because those look-fors are rich in information about evidence-based practice. Moderate disabilities is for pre-K to 8 candidates, yes. The link
I can reshare it.
Yes, we'll share the link to the quick reference guide in the chat. I will also share, we'll send an email with all of these resources linked directly to you so that it's easy to access. Other questions? When will it be incorporated into the online platform? So We are expecting to be updating CAP in the coming years as the PSTs are being updated. The CAP guidelines will also be updated. So any changes to the online platform will come when all of these updates are being made. We know it might be a little bit messy with the online platform this year, so hopefully you can bear with us as we're in this kind of in-between transition phase.
Shannon Hope also wanted to know if the form applies to graduate students.
Yes, all candidates in those programs, elementary, early childhood, and MODIS PK to 8.
And Heather asked if this also applies for ESL teacher candidates.
It does not. It's not currently a requirement for ESL programs. So you are welcome to use and adapt it. Other questions? I think the questions are slowing down. We'll stick around for a few moments, but I wanted to just briefly share this final page with you, where again, we link to the observation form, as well as more of the background information about it. That quick reference guide that you could share with program supervisors, the registration form for the community of practice, which the first meeting is October 5th, I believe, early October. The more information about early literacy and ed prep in general, the mass literacy guide, and the online course. So we will share these slides, this recording, and all of these links back with you in an email later on. But if you have additional questions, Siobhan and I can stick around for a few more minutes. And yes, Susan, we will share the PowerPoint and everything with you back today or tomorrow. And if there's no more questions, but thank you all for joining us today. I hope we answered some of your questions and provided information to get us started for this school year. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your morning.